Hey Justin, it's time to kick off our team health checks process again. I'm really keen to see how teams are doing and whether there are any trends across the org that we need to take some action on. Let's get it going. As an Agile coach, running health checks is really important for our organization. Teams score themselves on various aspects of team health, and then we can look at the patterns across all the squads in our tribe and mission to show us trends and allow us to see if there's something that we should focus on collectively.
Sure, Fiona. However, I'm not convinced that it's about the numbers or the trends. It's about the conversations that I enable the teams to have. I also think that some squads need a different kind of health check. And I don't think that it will plug into the numbers. As an Agile coach, I believe the value of health checks is at the team level. I wanted to highlight things we don't usually talk about and give us the opportunity to go deep into topics that's relevant for the team. I feel that health checks sometimes become bland and actions tend to be small and limited. Sometimes individual teams and organizations have different needs of health checks. Welcome to our talk. Team health checks, one size does not fit all. Maybe you're someone who facilitates health checks, or maybe you're a participant and just wants them to be more relevant. We want you to understand why one size does not fit all, and what can you do about it. But first, what's a health check?
Let's break that apart for a moment. They're for teams, and a team is a group of people who need to work together to achieve a shared goal. It could be any kind of team, and we commonly run them with squads. Justin and I also regularly run them with various types of leadership teams, and we also run them with working groups. They're really useful for any team or group who wants to accelerate their journey to high performance. And a health check is an examination to determine the condition of a thing. In our case, the thing is a team, and it's preventative or pre-symptomatic tests. So you can imagine a medical health check. You find you have some symptoms, you go to the doctors to discuss them and kind of work out what you should do. Do you need a prescription? Should you get some physical therapy? Maybe you need to go and get an MRI. So imagine this, but in a team context. The team checks for some symptoms, maybe tech health, their relationships within the team with each other, their vision or mission. And then they get together and talk about the results to decide what to do. What actions should we take that will support improving this? And then, is that action enough, or is there some series of things to do? Across Spotify, teams use a number of different health checks, and there's a version, the Spotify health check model, that anyone can read about on our engineering blog.
We've both been working as Agile coaches at Spotify for 6 years. In our day-to-day work, we develop teams and leaders be the absolute best that they can be. I'm Justin.
And I'm Fiona.
We work with the full stack of Spotifyers, from squads to squad leadership, to product area leadership, to tribe leadership, to mission leadership. And we've experienced a lot of health checks. And guess what? One size does not fit all. There's a trap in treating health checks as an operationalized process, and only treating it as a special kind of retrospective where you chat about things so broadly that no meaningful action emerges. We're here to urge you not to give all teams the same treatment. Focus on the needs of that team and customize parts of the health check. Make sure the team and organization gets a valuable end-to-end experience and not just a slightly different retrospective.
We focus on 3 things when we run health checks for teams. Customizing the health check to make it fit what's going to benefit the team. What symptoms do we need to check for? We do a deep debrief with what the results turn up. We act like the doctor and dig into what is really going on. And then we follow through to maximize the health check's effects. Perhaps we have to book physical therapy or an MRI. So So we're going to go into depth on all of these, and we're going to share our facilitation, design, and process tips. And if you've got questions as we go, just use the SpEC 2022 Agile Leadership Slido, and we'll come to them at the end.
Yeah. Let's remind ourselves of the high-level process of a health check. So you complete a survey, follow some facilitation plan, debrief it with the team, converge on some actions, and aggregate the numbers to leadership. And that's it. Rinse and repeat every quarter or two, and look at things where you're going to help you look at things that you can add to that. Let's talk about customizing. Choose a health check that best supports your team. What health check will you run? What symptoms might your health check uncover? We want to encourage you to think about this a little. You might have one that you already use. But your health check might be optimized for psychological safety or tech health. But it might not be the most useful thing for your team in this moment. Try a different one. We've published one on our engineering blog that some of our teams uses. And many of the different missions and tribe health checks we use in Spotify have taken inspiration from it. There's also a few ones outside that we use when the context is relevant. We find that the Team Effectiveness Health Check published by Google Rework is a great one for uncovering interpersonal symptoms. And something like the 5 dysfunctions of a team is a great one for running as a leadership team. Right now, you might be thinking,
yeah, this is a good idea, but we have a standard health check. How can I run these other ones?
I have the answer. Don't break the organizational view. So consider what's happening in the organizational view and think about how you'll integrate to it. If you try to break the view, you won't be a very popular person. If your organization wants numbers, make sure you give them the numbers. You might need to ask the questions that will be aggregated, but maybe you don't need to debrief those questions if it's not important for the team. Now that you've chosen a health check, ask yourself, is there anything else that I should change about it? You could essentially tailor what to the fit of your own team. You could choose to add specific open-ended questions that will cover something relevant for the team right now. For example, you might want to include some questions about working distributed. Maybe you have a sense that a squad's not totally happy with its work, and you could add specific questions to that. For example, which part of the things you own are you most excited about? Or what are things that hold you back in your day-to-day work that makes you less productive and happy? Or maybe there's something in one of those health checks that you choose that only a subset of those are actually relevant to you. For example, a lead team is together and they need to get to know each other better. You could select a subset of questions in a specific health check that helps them with that. So let's recap. You've now chosen a health check, you thought about not breaking that organizational view, and you've tailored questions to best suit your current team's needs. Now, it's time for the deep debrief.
Doing a deep debrief. So it can be really common when debriefing a health check to want to make sure that we talked about the most important things and that we got to actions on all of those important things and that we discussed all the results. But really, the main thing you want to do is to facilitate a deep conversation about any one topic that's important to the team. When you do this, you increase the vulnerability and the empathy between team members. And so having the space for that conversation is in itself a super valuable outcome of a team health check. It's going to support the team to be more effective and high-performing day to day if they've heard and valued each other's opinions and they're getting in a habit of that. So you want to make room for everyone to share their point of view and know that their concerns are important and have really been heard. We're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. First, you want to turn up your curiosity to go really deep into the conversation. You want to uncover the real issues that don't show up day to day or in your regular retros. You want to draw out what people really mean when they say something so that everyone understands each other's feelings and thoughts on a subject. And to do that, you want to ask lots of open questions. You want to help them talk in concrete examples. And also you want to not let people jump too soon to actions. Here's how that might play out on a team where one member has rated something lower than the others.
I rated trust a 2, and I think we should work on trust.
What's important about that to you, Justin?
I feel when trust is not high, I tend to work defensively.
And what does that look like?
Well, I try to complete all my stories without asking for help.
Right. So if you've rated trust low because you feel like you can't ask the team for questions.
Yes.
Rest of the team, how does that feel to hear that Justin can't ask you questions? And at this point, the other team members usually say that they feel pretty bad about that, and they tell Justin that he should ask questions. And now this is the point where you want to move them to actions, because they got what it was like to be Justin in this situation. And so maybe they'll just talk about having some explicit permission to ask questions in Slack and tag the goalie so he doesn't feel like they're interrupting. Or perhaps the team could commit to a habit of asking who still has questions when they're at the end of any discussions. Whatever it is, the team can discuss and choose and know that they're really getting to the heart of that trust issue for Justin. There's a few specific techniques that we use when we're kind of trying to push that conversation a bit deeper than it might naturally be. The first one is asking what questions rather than why. A why question often gets people feeling a bit defensive because it can come across as demanding and confrontational, whereas what and how questions avoid that. They sound a bit more curious. Why are you late? Compared with, what happened to make you late? Or, why did you do that? Compared to, how did you come to do that? So you can just swap out those why questions with what questions, and you'll actually go quite a long way to helping the team tell each other more. Another thing is using something rather than anything when you're asking people to share. Anything is this trick word that can tend to cause our brains to start to filter. Is there anything else about this? I've got a couple of things, but I don't know. Are they important? Which one should I say? Versus something just tends to avoid that filter, and I'm more likely to share because, yes, actually, I have something. And then the last thing we've got on this slide behind us is showing people the numbers. It can be really tempting to give them the numbers from the health check survey that they did at the beginning. But when you do that, we found they tend to get really drawn into those numbers. What do they mean? Are they correct? And those are actually not the conversations that you want to have in a health check. So when you show them the little people, as we have over on the left there, those conversations all go away because when they see those little people, we're talking just about us.
Fiona chatted about turning up curiosity and shared some tricks how to help the team get really curious. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to create that space for the team to really go deep. When I facilitate, I often have an opinion of what would help the team be high-performing. And in this, I need to remember that this is a space for the team to really understand themselves. When I stay silent and don't participate in in the conversation, that's where the real gold for the team turns up. For me, for team leaders, and for the team. Imagine the role play that Fiona and I just did, and where I said, I'm rating this a 2, I think we need to work on trust. And Fiona's immediate response was?
I might have said, well, we have a trust workshop booked as part of our offsite next week. We'll be able to talk about this then.
So see what she did there? She dissolved the conversation immediately. With best intentions, she had business context. It's a relevant thing to add. However, we wouldn't have gotten to the undercurrent of what's going on. We wouldn't have gotten to why trust is a problem, and we wouldn't have gotten to those few actions about pinging the goalie in Slack and having the goalie ping me, essentially. So, as the facilitator, don't obstruct the flow of the conversation. Leave space for the team to talk. If you're like me and want to jump into the conversation constantly, first count to 10 and see what happens. Heck, count to 30 if that's what you have to do. Here, I'm not saying don't ever participate. You have valuable business context for the team. So when you're sure that this is the best time to jump in, when you've really went deep, make it clear to the team that you're taking off your facilitator hat and that you're briefly going to participate in the conversation by saying that out loud and participate in the conversation. And when you're done participating, say out loud that you're putting back your facilitator hat and continue creating this wide open space for the team.
And lastly here on the debrief, you will not get through it all, and that's okay. You've had a really deep, spacious conversation about something that's important to the team, and that's what you were aiming for. Avoid the temptation to feel that you have to rush through the rest of the results or get to more actions. Capture actions if they've come up, for sure, or if you get to that step in the process. But otherwise, just trust that that deep conversation you've just had is going to be enough, because you're always going to be able to book the MRI a little bit later to do some more work. So let's recap. You've turned your curiosity up. You've used some of our facilitation tips. You've left space for the team to go really deep. And you didn't get through it all, but you're okay with that. Now it's time for the follow-through.
The follow-through. Make a plan for what happens, for what your next steps will be with the team. Consider what you heard from the team through their scoring and through the conversations that you just witnessed in the team health check. What patterns did you notice that will likely require more work? Was there some outlier result that wasn't discussed? Perhaps you need to strategize about how the team can address that. Do you think people really said what they thought? If not, maybe you could help the team work on psychological safety. What are things that you should discuss in your one-on-ones? Remember in that role play that me and Fiona did? It would be interesting to talk about why I feel I can't ask questions, and whether there were more reasons why I scored that too. That's something you can discuss in your one-on-ones. Next up, encourage team accountability. Likely a few actions emerged in that conversation, and make sure the actions are captured somewhere, the meetings are booked, and the teams has the first steps to take action on them. Maybe there's a larger initiative that you're discovering while reflecting. That trust workshop that you have planned will be really useful for them. So you need to make sure that it doesn't get removed from the offsite agenda. And there could be a really small action, like adding a question to your daily stand-up. If focus was a topic to improve, you could add a fourth question to the stand-up. The fourth question being, are we working on the right things today? Lastly, remember that you don't need to book MRIs for everything. Working on one thing together will have ripple effects into the team's other work, supporting them to be more effective and high-performing day to day. Lastly, it's about creating an organizational view for your leaders. It's about aggregating the numbers. Remember, we said don't break the system in terms of the organizational view. If your organization collects numbers, as we said earlier, you should give them. If your organization doesn't collect numbers, it's still good to aggregate the results. You could gather managers to talk about what patterns emerged across all your teams. For example, all engineering managers in your organization could come and share the top 3 health priorities that they uncovered. So, let's recap. Now, you've made a plan for your next steps. You've encouraged your team to take some accountability, and you created that organizational view. And you're done. Until next time.
And so next time you're planning a round of health checks, just remember that one size doesn't fit all. You've always got to customize, see what symptoms you're going to start looking for. You're going to do a deep debrief, act like that doctor, trying to find out what's really going on. And then you're going to be able to follow through. You're going to maximize the health check effects by booking the MRIs, physical therapy, whatever you decide the team needs. And so now, you've got all the tools you need to approach your health checks differently next time. And we think you'll experience better health check conversations and outcomes as a leader or engineering manager and as a member. So thanks for listening.